Don't worry. I, so let me restart. Hello everybody and welcome to the Microsoft Data and AI South Florida user group. My name is Adriano, your host, and thank you very much for making the time to be here with us in this great presentation. As you're aware, we are doing worldwide sessions from presenters from all around the world. And whether you're watching us now and or a later time, we want to know where are you located. So if you're watching us live, remember to enter your location in the chat window. If you're watching us after the event has complete, drop your location in the comment section below. Also, if you have any questions during the presentation, during the live feed, you can use the chat window to enter your questions. And if the session has already completed, use the comment section, enter your questions. We will follow up with the presenter and talk more about it. So what we're doing today is building seamless data and the AI with Azure Cognitive Search by Hugo Barona is who we have here today. So folks, without further ado, let's bring Hugo. Welcome, Hugo. How are you?
Hello, everyone. I'm good, and you, Adriano?
Well, thank you. It's a great day.
Thank you so much for the invites. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you and delivering this session to the Data and AI South Florida user group. Thank you once again.
All right, great to have you here. And let me take a quick look here. We have, I hope you have Mr. Soto here, who is from Hallandale, Florida. Hey, Hugo. Hey, Soto. Welcome. And tell us about you, Hugo. Where are you located?
Okay, so I'm based in Ireland. I'm original from Portugal, but I moved a few years ago to Ireland for professional reasons. And in terms of myself, so I have a degree in computer science. I have most of my experience in professional experience in working in computer science. My background is development, so I used to develop solutions in the cloud and on premise. Then in the last few years, I have been working with clients to migrate and even create new workloads in the cloud, do different types of tasks, including development and architecture of solutions in the cloud.
Awesome. Very interesting here. So, over the past few years, and how does Azure Cognitive Search came about for you here?
Yeah, so I had so in the last few years I have been working as independent contractor with a few different clients, and a few clients I have been working to create solutions. Essentially, the requirement is to create solutions that provide search capabilities into their web apps and websites. So then I came across Azure Search, and pretty much I decided to explore more about this service and understand how it could be beneficial. So I believe the talk, as you know, and in case the people attending this talk are not aware, but this session represents actually a series of 2 sessions. So the session today, it will be more an introduction to Azure Cognitive Search, so you can understand what the service has to offer you, and also how you can benefit from it in your context and in your scenario when you are creating solutions in the cloud. And then, of course, the second session this month, we will, Adriano will announce the date, but we will explore more in details the part of indexing and enriching your data into your Azure Search solutions.
Indeed, great point there, Hugo. I have posted the session already on Meetup. So if you all go to the Microsoft Data and AI South Florida user group meetup page, you will see there enhanced data with Azure Cognitive Search and Artificial Intelligence by Hugo Barona. And I will be announcing, so you also should see an email with that information coming to you. If you're watching us right now and or after, I'm going to share the link on our chat right now for part 2, so you can also leverage that information right now on the chat. That's the URL. Let me get the session name. It's also going to be there. It's a great point that Hugo was saying. This is the goal here is to get all the data professionals familiar with tools that are out there that can help us enrich our data on a simpler manner and with little or no code. So,
Exactly.
Hugo, can you tell us just a short description of today's session? I know you'll talk more later, but at least something like a couple sentences.
Yeah, of course. See, what you can expect from today, it's pretty much an introduction to the Azure Cognitive Search. I will show you the different features you have available. I will explain each one of the features, how you can use it, and then we will pretty much have a demo where I will show you a process, how to start from your data source. You can use many different types of data source to pretty much use this process. And the idea will be to show you how you can create your Azure Search instance, index your data, enrich your data with the default options while you are creating your Azure Search instance. And then we will end up the demo with the quick tests on your Azure Search instance that you created, okay? And the most important thing is, I did this session before, but the audience was a bit different. So I did deliver the session for developers audience. So I focused more on the tools that they have available, including the SDKs. This one will be purely focused for the citizen developers, so people that don't really are familiar with development and don't care about development. So that's the idea. So I will show you how you can do the process without any code required, pretty much.
Outstanding. So that's very exciting. So there's only one thing I want to point out before we move on, Hugo, which is I missed it. Someone came in while we were presenting and shared the location being in, the person is in Melbourne, Australia. How about that?
Nice.
So
Nice.
really reaching out a public, worldwide public there.
Yes, that's
So
the way, connect the community worldwide. That's what we want.
indeed, as you can see, like we are the Americas, Europe, and Pacific, Asian Pacific, Australia there.
Yeah.
That is awesome. All right, Hugo. I know you're exciting. Folks, let's get started. And let me pass the baton here to Hugo. It's all you, Hugo. You can start sharing your slides there.
Let me know when you can see my slides, please.
All right. Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. So I will start by, of course, doing a quick introduction of myself. As I mentioned, most of my experience is in development, also, of course, doing all the different tasks related to implementing solutions in the cloud and on-premise. I'm also a Microsoft enthusiastic with Microsoft technologies. I've been spending the last few years dedicating a bit of my free time on certifications, and also whenever I have time, of course, I look to contribute to the community. I'm a member of one of the groups called Lunch and Learn, and anytime I have free time available, It's always a pleasure to be here and deliver sessions to the community, and also attend sessions with other speakers and learn all together. And that's pretty much me. Of course, MCT and MVP, so that means I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, and I have the MVP in Azure category. So let's get started. And once again, thank you so much for attending this session. I hope you enjoy. If you have any questions, feel free to drop the questions in the chat, and I will try to answer as soon as possible. So I want to start by giving you an overview of what is Azure Cognitive Search. So when we think about search service architecturally, right, it is something that sits in between the data stores and that contain your data and your client apps that sends query requests to the search service and handles the response. So it provides you and your application in this case with a very powerful and fast query engine that enables you to perform a variety of queries to your data out of the box. That's the most important thing, and retrieve massive amounts of data as fast as possible. So to explain you a few reasons why you should consider using Azure Search, I prepared this architecture diagram of a few traditional web apps. So on the left, we have the various data source storing and providing the data into your applications. Then we have the web apps that host your websites and some search functionality to enable the users using the apps to perform search queries to the data. And then we have users accessing the web apps using browser in various devices, including mobile device. So as you can see, and as you can imagine, there are some important points to take from this diagram. The first is the fact that you have different web apps providing search capabilities to the users. If those web apps are using the same technology stack, then you could have a search module being used by the different web apps. But in this scenario, you would be limited in terms of the technologies used, because that means you would need to ensure that you would be using the same technology across all the different web apps. Or if you want to use different technologies in each web app, then you most probably would need to implement search capabilities into each of the web apps. So you would have different code base to manage providing the search capabilities. Considering that most of the times those web apps use common data provided by your data source, of course, then you would have extra unnecessary complexity. So one of the major factors is, of course, the fact that you need to build the search capabilities by yourself. So in the traditional model, any search capability that you want to provide in your web app, you need to pretty much build it by yourself and query your data source potentially directly. So if we consider requirements such as building faceted search or even performing geospatial queries, then you can imagine the complexity and the efforts that these may require, right? So given that I reused the previous diagram and context to show you how it would be using Azure Search Service. So on the left, we continue with our data source of different types. So as you can see, we have SQL database, we have Cosmos DB, we have Azure Storage, and then on the top, we now have our Azure Search instance. And you can use one or more instances, depending, of course, of the requirements and the context. But essentially, you have an Azure Search instance importing the data from the data source, storing it in the index, and providing search capabilities out of the box to your users. So your users can directly query your Azure Search, So considering as an example, those scenarios that you have and you are using client-side web apps or even single-page applications. So that means the requests to the Azure Search would start from the client, or you can have your web app that's run server-side code in the server to perform the queries and returning the results to the users. So the key takeaway from this diagram, so a few actually key takeaways. You have a way, first you have a way to, of course, consolidate multiple data sources into your Azure Search instance. And of course, enable your users to perform queries to that data without requiring you to implement those search capabilities. So you just need to leverage the out-of-the-box features available. Also, the minimal effort you can enable your with minimal effort, you can enable your web apps to query your Azure Search instance. Or even if you want to abstract your web apps and users from it and manage it in a single place, you could consider connecting, as an example, an API management service with your Azure Search and manage the queries from there without, again, requiring code to make the search endpoints available. So personally, I can tell you that Azure Search simplifies a lot the implementation of search capabilities in many scenarios. Just one quick note about this diagram. Of course, this is not a fully ready production diagram, so a lot of things are omitted for simplicity of the examples that I'm giving here, of course. Now, when we talk about search components, right, there are four main components of the Azure Cognitive Search that I want to share with you. So you have, of course, the data source, right, that represents essentially the containers of data that you want to use to provide to the search engine. And then they can be either data in Azure SQL database, or even blobs stored in storage containers, or even documents in your Cosmos DB. Also, you have the index, which represents a collection of searchable data mapped into index fields and stored as JSON documents extracted, of course, from your data source. Also, you have the indexers that are the engine that drives the overall indexing process. So it extracts data and metadata values from the original data source and maps them to fields in the index. So indexers automatically runs when it's created, but it can also run based on a schedule or run on demand to add more documents to the index. So all these details, don't worry, in the demo I will show you how you can use these different components. And then, of course, you have the skill sets, which is a capability of Azure Cognitive Search that enables you to apply a collection of skills as part of the indexing process to enrich your data and map the outputs in this case to fields defined in your search index. So now let's talk about the capabilities of the Azure Cognitive Search service. Sorry, we covered data source already, but to give a bit more detail, currently the search service supports data from Azure Blobs, Azure Data Lake, Azure SQL, Table Storage, and Cosmos DB. So it's important for you to understand the data source that you are trying to consume and if it's supported or not, because there is a limited set of data sets that are supported by Azure Search. And of course, you can use any data source, but depending on the data source that you are using to import, you may need to use a different type of import process. I will explain in more detail later in this presentation. And with the use, of course, of the managed identities, you can authenticate to those sources and avoid using hard-coded connection strings. So when you are configuring your Azure Search instance, and in this case, your indexer, you actually have the option to use managed identities. But it's since it's outside of the scope of this presentation, I will not approach this topic, but it's just to keep a note that's definitely it's the best practice if you move forward, go live and to production with your search instance. That should be the way you should consider. And of course, in case you are using data source not supported by Azure Search, as I mentioned before, you can always build your import process using Azure Service. For example, you can use Azure Functions and use the .NET SDK. Of course, this scenario would require some developments, or even Azure Logic Apps and the REST API available on Azure Search. And in this scenario, you would not require it would not require any development, because as you know, you can create your logic apps using the designer, you can create your flow, and then in your logic app, you can pretty much use the HTTP action with doing requests to the REST API of the Azure Search. Also, the full text search, yes. Okay. Oh yeah, let's go. Yeah. The presentation is whooping a bit the sound.
Yeah. Hello, everybody, and we have a question here for Hugo. And just before we start the question, is remember use the live chat. Become a subscriber so you can use the live chat to enter your questions. If you're watching us after the presentation, please remember to use the comment section to drop your question there. So we have a couple questions here. First one is, why not use SharePoint Search?
Why not use SharePoint Search? Well, I would say, see, the as far as I know, right? I have worked with SharePoint before, but as far as I know, SharePoint represents a document management system, so it's not really feasible to be indexing data and providing search capabilities. I'm not fully aware of the search capabilities provided by SharePoint in this scenario. Of course, you could have lists and index content in the lists and then leverage the existing functionality. But imagine scenarios, as an example, imagine scenarios that you need to leverage faceted search, or even you need to leverage geospatial queries against your data. I believe that SharePoint doesn't support it. And so what we I believe that we are talking about different things ultimately. So this search service, it's ultimately a service that provides you out of the box all the common search requirements and capabilities required to your web applications and websites. So that means the big advantage of this service is you can immediately connect the service with your data source and with your applications and provide out of the box those search capabilities without developments and without too much of configuration. So that's, I would say that's the big reason why I would consider to use Azure Search. And depending on the scenarios, as I mentioned, SharePoint is not even an option, if you know what I mean. Because if you consider geospatial queries and so on, complex scenarios, there is no point, there is no way to achieve this, as far as I know. But I may be wrong, okay? But that's my personal opinion, yes.
On another note, I don't know whether SharePoint would be able to handle very large data sets to perform search on. You know, I'm talking about like,
Yeah.
hundreds of terabytes.
It's fair point. I would say yes, it handles because see, I last time I used SharePoint, to be honest, was 2013. But at that time, I was building some applications on SharePoint, and we were, of course, using SharePoint lists to back up a lot of the data there. And yeah, I think, of course, we are not talking about, if we are talking about terabytes, that's a different that's a different conversation. But below that, I believe SharePoint would handle it. But the key point here is we are talking about things to different purpose, in my opinion. And also, I have a feeling that SharePoint doesn't support all the search capabilities as the Azure Search supports.
All right. All right then. So the answer
Can
here,
I continue?
he's saying that
Yeah.
SharePoint has connectors to all data sources you mentioned, and index exactly the same way. But I fear that the matter here also may be about the terabytes of data, where I believe cognitive search is going to be able to handle. Is that correct?
Yeah, and see, the most important thing is the complexity of your queries. Okay, so I know that you can index data into SharePoint and you can perform basic search queries. But if, as I mentioned, if we consider scenarios that you need to leverage geospatial queries, then forget about it. As far as I know, forget about it. It would be a really complex process, even if it would be possible to achieve that with SharePoint. Okay, so to give you a practical example, recently I worked in a project using Azure Search, and pretty much the client has a website with tourism information, and one of the requirements was around providing the geolocation of search of capabilities. So to enable people to wherever they are to find the nearby items. So that means you have a person with a location, latitude and longitude, and by having these points, you need to find the nearby items. Now you can imagine using Azure Search, it's pretty straightforward to do these queries, but now you can imagine if you go in the direction of using SharePoint, how painful it would be. Of course, you could leverage libraries and build code to connect with SharePoint and then run the queries in the code, but ultimately focus on the most important thing. We are talking about something that simplifies this whole process. So what I'm saying is maybe with some complex scenarios, with some additional work and more complex tools, you can achieve the same, but ultimately it's you are going in the more complex way, if you know what I mean, and direction.
All right, thank you. Great info there, Hugo.
No worries.
And thanks for your question, Dev. Landscape motion. Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Can I continue, Adrian?
Yes, go ahead, Hugo. It's all
Okay.
you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So also, as I was saying, the full text search capability of the service is built on top of Apache Lucene, an open source search engine. So this search engine uses a specialized query format, and it's really powerful. With it, you can do, as an example, wildcards, fuzzy search, proximity search, regular expressions, and more. Also, it includes the suggesters, which are properties that you can apply to the fields of the index that provide support to partially match terms on text. You also have synonyms, which are assets that you can create to expand the scope of the query without having to provide the term. So as an example, you can use this to map the word dog to canine or puppy. So any of those words would be actually a match. And the scoring, of course. So Azure Search uses the default scoring algorithm to calculate the scores of the matches for a given query to ensure that it orders the most relevant content on top based on the query. But if you want to make certain fields more important than others to the algorithm, Then you can create custom scoring profiles and also set individual scoring for each field. And then you can ensure that matches on a field with higher scoring for a given query will come first in comparison with the matches on fields with lower scoring for the same query, of course. And as I mentioned before, the usage of skill sets and skills enables you to use AI and have an AI-powered search. This is another big difference on SharePoint as well, the built-in AI connection. And in terms of language, Azure Search offers you multi-language support, so users can retrieve results from the index using their own language. And also, it has support for, as I mentioned, geospatial queries. So if your index has geospatial data, imagine locations, it is possible to perform queries such as retrieve the distance between 2 points or check if a given point is in a given polygon. So these are just some of the major features provided out of the box by Azure Search most importantly, without requiring any development on your site. So I would encourage you to have a look at the full list of features provided so you can understand fully how you can benefit from using Azure Search. So one important process of your Azure Search solution is the process of indexing data, right? So of course, you have your data in your data source, and you need a way to import the data into Azure Search. As I mentioned before, depending on the type of data source you are using, you may need to use a different type of imports model. So you have two models to index the data. You have the pull and you have the push model. So with the pull model, you can use the indexer feature available on Azure Search to crawl and extract the data from an external Azure data source and populate your search index using field mappings to map source and destination fields, using skill sets to transform and enhance the data available in the source data, and more. Also, you have the push model, where you can build custom process to push the data into your search index using tools such as the SDKs or even the Azure Search REST API. So as mentioned in the previous slides, you can leverage skill sets and skills to enhance your data, applying simple data transformations such as aggregations, calculations, or even concatenations, or more advanced using cognitive skills to analyze sentiment of data, translate texts, extract key phrases from your data, or even perform optical character recognition and more. So you have a built-in set of skills available to perform common operations with your data. We'll see in the demo. But in case you do not find a proper built-in skill to use in your scenario, you can always create custom skills, including calling your machine learning models to perform predictions, or even calling custom web APIs and Azure functions to run your custom logic and return the expected results so you can enhance your data in the way you need. And then, of course, you can group those skills into individual skill sets and connect your skill sets with your indexer to be used during the indexing process. So I'm just giving you some highlight level details here so you can understand how useful are these features. Most importantly is more details will come definitely in the second session that we'll have this month, because I will go into detail about the indexing and enrichment process of your data into the Azure Search. So just to share with you a few benefits and use case. So of course, Azure Search is easy to implement, and that's a really important factor into the equation. So you need to consider all the different common search capabilities that you may need to implement in your web apps. Most probably Azure Search provides you out of the box already. So the only thing you need to, as I mentioned before, the only thing you need to worry is connect your data source with Azure Search, and then connect your Azure Search with your application, and then just make your application make those requests to leverage the search capabilities. We will see a demo app that Azure Search provides and allows you to create. So then you can see more and less out of the box what you can expect. Also, of course, it provides you a way with this integration from your Azure data source. Of course, this is for the supported data stores. In scenarios that you are using a data store or a data source that is not supported, as I mentioned, you need to use the push model. So that means you may need to build your flow to ensure that you push the data from your data source to your Azure Search instance. Then, of course, it's a managed service, platform as a service. So that means a lot of things are abstracted from yourself, including to ensure the scalability and the loading of the requests in case you are using multiple replicas to ensure the maximum availability of your Azure Search instance. So everything, all of this is abstracted from yourself, so you can focus on what really matters. And in this case, it's your data and your search capabilities provided to your web applications. And then, of course, it provides you features to implement scalability and have a scalable Azure Search instance with replicas and partitions in your data, and also becomes a cost-effective solution because you have many plans available and you can play around with the number of replicas you want to use in order to just consume what you need and consequently pay only for what you consume. And of course, out of the box, it provides you many search features relevant to your applications, including your web applications. In those scenarios those complex scenarios that you require complex search capabilities, you can leverage always linguistic or custom text analysis using cognitive service, and also transform your raw data into searchable data using the indexer. Oh, now comes the best part. I assume it's the demo. So, Adriano, so far, can you please let me know if we have any questions pending? I assume there is some delay. Adriano, you there? We have some delay. Let me just try to maybe load here the live. So I see the comments from Landscape in Motion. As I mentioned to you, the most important message here is definitely I'm not saying that it's not possible to achieve. What I'm saying is ultimately the most important thing is, I believe, when we are implementing these solutions, we try to go in the easier way as possible, while of course achieving having solutions that achieve our needs and fulfill our requirements. But what I'm saying is, if you have the simple way by using Azure Search, then the question becomes, why would you even consider to use SharePoint to build this kind of search capabilities into your web apps? Also, you need to keep in mind that we are talking about, because I remember this from SharePoint 2013, there are some complexity around making cross-domain requests into the SharePoint from your applications. So that means you need to worry where you are hosting the applications, because I remember on the SharePoint 2013, it was requiring you to host your applications in SharePoint in order to have access to the SharePoint libraries in order to access your data. So that's another key factor. What we are saying here is you have your web apps completely outside of SharePoint, completely external to SharePoint, and then you have, of course, in a simplified scenario, you have your Azure Search instance that is connected to your web apps and providing the search capabilities. I don't know if Adrian is back. Adrian, you there? Okay, great. I was trying to just see if you are there. So yeah, we definitely have the demo. I was just trying to see if with you if we have any pending questions. I can see if we use this for scan a document library on SharePoint surface. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Ultimately, I would say I'm happy to answer these questions offline. But if we go out of the scope of the presentation, then I have a feeling that we will not make it on time. So I'm happy. If you want, you can connect with me, Landscape, and I'm happy to take over these questions and explain you in details what I mean. What I'm saying, ultimately, the key message here is not only with Azure Search, but one key lesson in the clouds, in my opinion, is we need to always try to simplify things, make it simple, okay? So what I'm saying is, if you have something that fulfills your requirements and your needs, and it's a simple way to use, so why not? Why should we go to complex scenarios? Let me just close here. Complex scenarios and end up implementing complex solutions in order to achieve the same results. For me, honestly, it's really up to yourself. But on my side, I always try to simplify things, you know. So if I have something simple that allows me to achieve what I need and my requirements, then I always try to go by the simple way. Of course, then are other factors to consider, including the knowledge and the skills of the team to use the given tool, and also the cost associated and so on. So given that, are we happy to move to the demo, Adriano? Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen here. Let me know if you can see my screen. Can you see my screen? Okay, great. Okay, so first, what we have here, I have a resource group for the purpose of this demo, right? And I created a simple data source using one of the data sets available on one of the Azure Search samples. And pretty much this data set contains a list of reviews for a given hotel. So what I did was I used DocumentDB data migration tool to import the data into an Azure Cosmos DB account. So as you can see, I have one Azure Cosmos DB account created with a SQL API database, and then I have a container here with my hotel reviews. The hotel reviews pretty much contains JSON documents with the different properties related to the hotel review. Okay, so it's the review of the clients of the hotel. This is one important detail is this data set is random data, okay, so it's not real data, so don't try to rely on this for the matter of making sense. Maybe some of the things don't make sense here, so this is the purpose of them, for the purpose of them. So I have this data source. What else do I have? I also have in my resource group, I have a storage accounts, and I will explain you why I have this storage account. So pretty much when you are creating your enrichments, then you have a possibility to create knowledge stores and store those enriched documents into your Azure Storage. So then you can leverage functionality tools such as reporting tools, such as Power BI, to pretty much consume that data and show the reports. I will show during the demo as well a quick example of a template that you can download and use to pretty much show a report in Power BI with showing your data. Okay, so and then for the matter of reducing the time, of course, I created in advance one search instance. I will just iterate the process of creating the search instance with you. You start by selecting, of course, create a new resource. One important detail why I'm doing this, because Azure Search is at the moment accessible to anyone. So as long as you have an Azure subscription, even if you don't have credits, you Azure Search, there is a pricing tier, a plan that is free. Okay, so it allows you to create, if I'm not wrong, 3 index. So you can create 3 index to store your data, 3 or 1. I will check in a minute for you. So you just start by search by Azure Search, and then select Azure Cognitive Search. Then again, select the option to create. You select the subscription that you want to use, the resource group. You just provide it a name, okay? And I'm just going to create here. You just select the region, and then you have the pricing tier. In the pricing tier, as I mentioned, yes, the free allows you to create 3 index, okay? You can use only a single search unit on free per subscription. So that means if you try to create 2 units of the Azure Search using the free tier, it will not be allowed, okay? It's only a limit of 1 unit per subscription. And then, of course, you don't have the scalability, so you cannot use multiple replicas to replicate your data and achieve better availability on your read and write operations. And also partitions, again, is 1. But as you can see, the magic is 0 cost. So that means you can start using it and you can start to play around just to do some POCs and explore the functionality and have a feeling by yourself, okay? Because ultimately, the experience of each individual using this service, it's different. So I always recommend people to give it a try and try by yourself and try to understand in your context where you work, where you have your projects, to see if the Azure Search fits your needs. So given that, then of course you select the pricing tier. Then you can proceed. You can scale for multiple replicas. In this case, I selected the free one, so I cannot do it. But in here, you can configure it during the creation. And then you have the step to apply tags in case you want to tag your resource for different environments and different departments and so on. And then you just review and create, okay? I'm not going to create because, as I mentioned before, I have already one resource created, okay? So given that we have our Azure Cosmos DB accounts created, we have the data sets of reviews for a given hotel imported into the Cosmos DB account using the document DB data migration tool. And I also have a storage account that I will use to store the knowledge stores. So now what I'm going to do is we are going to start by going to our search service, and pretty much as you can see in the tab usage, we have no index created. And the first step, considering the most important thing is There are multiple ways you can approach this, the process of creation of your index and indexing the data. But I'm using the approach, of course, with no code required, okay? So the first step is, of course, import data. You select the option to import data, and then you pretty much start by selecting your data source and connect your data source with the Azure Search. So in this case, I will select Azure Cosmos DB as the option. I will provide it a name. I will call it Hotel Reviews. Here, you have the option to hard code the connection string, or as I mentioned, use managed identity. So for workloads in production, as I mentioned, as a best practice, consider using managed identity. That means you need to enable the identity in your data source, and then you need to of course, do the assignments to the identity access assignments to give permission to your data source and to Azure Search to read your data source, okay, and access your data source. So in this case, I'm not going to hard code anything. I'm going to just select the option to choose an existing connection, and then you can see it lists the data source of the type that I selected, in this case, Cosmos DB. In this case, I have my DB hotels here available. I just select my DB hotels. It's the Cosmos DB account that I created. Then you can select your database, in this case, DB hotels, and then you can select your collection, in this case, hotel reviews. Also, one important detail, you can optionally configure here a query and consequently filter the amount of data that you import to your Azure Search, okay? So given that we are happy, let's proceed. And in the next step, we have pretty much the screen to configure your enrichments, okay, and define the cognitive skills that you want to use to enrich your data. The first option here, you have the option to connect cognitive service accounts into your Azure Search. You can create your own cognitive service, okay, or you can use by default the free cognitive service available, okay? The free one, as it mentioned, I think, yes, it mentions here, it has limited enrichments, okay? So if you want to use the full potential of the enrichments, including the vision enrichments and the visual enrichments and so on, to process image and videos, you need then to create a Cosmos, a cognitive service accounts, okay? And then connect here during the process, connect with your Azure Search instance. So then again, I'm going to configure the next option is adding the enrichments. For the matter of this demo, I'm going to select all the enrichments so then we can see the outputs. But the difference is in the source data fields, I'm going to select my field related with the reviews text. So the reviews text is the field that contains the full review of the user. So then I will enable these fields to be processed and be applied these enrichments to extract relevant information, okay? Including people names, organization names, location names, key phrases. So this is a really important feature actually, because you will see how easy it is to tag your content. So as you know, many websites nowadays rely on filters based on tags, and sometimes it's quite painful to be able to proactively, not proactively, efficiently tag your contents. With this capability and this feature, you are able to, out of the box, tag and extract key phrases and consequently tag your content. So that means then you can make available those key phrases into your web apps in the search capabilities and allow the users to filter by the different tags, okay? And then, of course, you have enrichments to detect the language, translate text. In this case, it will translate all the text to English. As I will show you, there are some reviews that are not in English. So this feature will be able to identify the language and of the text and translate it to English. and then extract personal information contained in the fields. Okay, and then the last option, the last configuration, is to pretty much configure where you want to save your enrichments, in this case to a knowledge store. Okay, in this case I'm going to select everything, so it will save the documents and it will save the projections in the Azure Storage account. In this case it will save in blob and table, and in here you need to, of course, configure the connection sync for your storage account. Again, I'm going to use the option to choose an existing connection. I'm going to select my storage account. I'm going to select my container, and then projections, and then it's all good to go. Okay, one important detail, as I mentioned before, once you run this indexer and once you have your content saved into your knowledge store, right, in this case in your Azure Storage account, then if you want, you can download these Power BI templates and use these parameters, and you can actually provide a report to your users with a report that allows them to analyze the content that you have available on your Azure Search instance. So it's a quick win. If you don't have a way to provide this content in the application itself, you can actually provide this report and allow the business users to connect to your Azure Search instance and analyze the content that you have there. Okay, so I downloaded already the templates. I will show you the report later on, but for now let's continue the creation of the index and import our data. So let's go to the next step to customize our targets index. So in this step, we need to customize our index, right? One key point here that I want to mention is we have all the different fields that are available in our data source that we selected, okay? In this case, our Cosmos DB. Well, one thing that I want to explain to you is when we are configuring our Azure Search, as you can see, you have the list of fields, you have the different types automatically identified, and then you have these options that you need to configure to pretty much configure the search capabilities for each one of the fields. So the retrievable pretty much is an option that declares, okay, these fields will be retrieved in the search results, okay? So if you want the address to feature the search results, then you need to enable the retrievable option here. In case of the filterable, that means this allows you, in case you want to use the address in your search queries, then you need to enable the filterable option in your for your address fields, okay, while you are creating your index. The sortable, again, as you may imagine, this means that this option is required for the fields that you want to use in your sort queries. So if you want to sort by, imagine, by dates, reviews date, then you need to enable the sortable option. And then facetable option, if you are familiar with faceted search, then anything that you want to filter, anything that you want to feature as a filter in your faceted search, then you need to enable this option for the fields. We will see in the demo app what I mean about this. And then the last one, of course, the searchable. That means that if you want to enable fields to be searchable by the full text search, then you need to enable this option. In this case, we'll enable. So for the matter of this demo, I will simplify things and I will enable everything for the retrievable, for the filterable, for the sortable. I will just enable the by dates and rating. For the fastable, I want to show you the reviews rating, how to use the reviews rating with the faceted search. And then for the searchable, let's do it with reviews text and title, okay? So once you are happy with all of this, we are in good conditions to proceed to the next step. So now the last step is pretty much about configuring your indexer. As I mentioned before, once you create your indexer, it will run and it will index your data. Also, you have here the option to configure the schedule. So you can configure to run it only once, or hourly, daily, or even custom, okay? So, and then you also have advanced options where you can specify batch size and so on. So once you are happy, we just need to submit, and it should import our data and finalize the creation of the index. So now let me just recall my notes. All right, so now we are going to start by showing you the index and the fields. Okay, so after you import your data, of course you have one index created. In this case, the Cosmos DB index. That's the one that we call it. Don't worry about these numbers because it takes sometimes to load. As you can see now, we have 19 documents. If I access the index straight, if I hit the search, I can see I have my content here already indexed. Okay, I'll show you the content in a minute. And also I have my fields, so all the fields that I configured. Some options, as you can see, they are configurable after you create your index. Some other options are not configurable. That means you need to recreate your index. Okay. Then you have CORS options to cross-domain requests. You have the tab to configure the scoring profiles, so you can create custom scoring profiles, as I mentioned. And then you have the index definition. Okay, so as I mentioned to you, there are different ways you can approach this. So as an example, one of the projects I was worked with to create the index, one of the requirements was the client is using source control, of course, to control the source code of their applications, and consequently then they have continuous integration and continuous deployment pipelines configured on Azure DevOps. And one of the requirements was definitely to enable to change to enable to control the versioning of the index, and secondly to enable to change the index without requiring to manually change here in the portal. So that means we created a pipeline to just pretty much we store these definitions. As you can see, you have the definition for the index, but not only the index. For the indexer, you have the definition. You have pretty much the definition for everything. So we store the definitions in the source control, and then we created pipelines to pretty much do the creation of the index and the updates of the fields and so on in an automated way. Okay, so that means they can change the definitions locally, kick off the pipeline, deploy to dev, test it, deploy to UAT, test it, and then deploy to production in an automated way, and have the expected results, the same results in the different environments, because pretty much the process is the same. Okay, so given that, one thing that I was going to show you is as you can see here on our data index in our Azure Search, we have our fields, but the most important thing is, so these fields are the ones that were extracted from the data source, in this case, the Cosmos DB, but then we have our enrichment, the fields storing the enrichments, okay? So as you can see, we have the people, we have the organizations, we have the locations, we have key phrases. So for example, in this review, you have the key phrase, lovely hotel, you have top floor, jacuzzi bath. So as you can see, it's easy to extract insights from your contents by leveraging these enrichments, okay? You can see there is the language field, identifying the language of the text, the translated text. Since the original is in English, this one is in English as well, of course, but quickly I can show you here one that's, yeah, this one as an example. The review text is in French, and then pretty much the enrichment was able to identify that the language is French, and the translated text is actually in English. So you can see no codes required, just click, and you can see how beautiful this is, you know. And then of course you have masked test. In case you have personal information in your fields, you can mask it and do not show it to the end users. And also the personal information entities as well identified in the text, okay? So I just wanted to show you the enrichments here available in the Azure Search. So given that, let's proceed and let's see the indexer, okay? So we have our index created. Now we have the tab for the indexer. As you can see, it's successfully created. But the important thing is there are 38 warnings, okay? So if we select the indexer, then we have here the list of executions, the history of executions, and you can always select one execution and see the details of the execution. So if I select this execution, you can see straight the 38 warnings that are coming. In this case, the data source do not have any image, so that's why it's warning that it's not finding any image. So it's a false positive. Okay, so it's a expected warning. So going back to the indexer, one important thing as well that I want to share with you and show you is, of course, again, you have, apart from the execution history, you have the settings where you can configure the settings for your indexer. One important thing, you have option to use an indexer cache. That means you can cache the enhancement, the enrichments that you are doing, and that means you don't need to recalculate the enrichments unless your original data, your source data changed. Okay, so that means it improves the performance of the indexing process and the calculation of the enrichments, and also reduce the amount of efforts during the indexing process, of course. And then again, you have the indexer definition as a JSON file. You can save it, put in your source control. You can have the pipelines, follow the best practice with continuous integration and continuous deployment, and deploy the definitions to the different environments, and avoid manual actions in terms of changing your index. So going back to the indexer, one important detail I want to share with you is, as you can see here, I hope, let me see if I just zoom in a bit more. So as you can see here, we have 19 documents indexed, right? So I would expect that if I run the indexer again, right, I would expect that we don't have any doc indexed. Why? Because my data did not change. So this is a smart way to just identify what is the content changed, modified, and then index only the content that was modified. So if I just hit here the run again, I'm just running on demand. And if I just refresh, I may need to, let me just see. Let me just refresh the page again. Sorry, sec. So indexers, if I go back again, maybe, is it because? Interesting. Okay, let me try to run again. Okay, funny. It's not actually, yeah, okay, it's taking some time. Sorry. I hope you can see it. I was a bit surprised because, yeah, as you can see, it triggered the indexing process, but this time you have 0 docs indexed, because ultimately your data did not change. So it doesn't make sense to spend efforts and power and computing on indexing things that did not change. So things stay as it is. Okay. So of course, imagine that you find an issue in your data and you say, okay, I want to force the index to reindex everything. Okay, that's fine. You just hit the reset here to reset the index, the indexer, and then you just run. Let me just refresh because there is some delay. Okay, the reset was fine. So I'm just going to run again. And as you can see, the indexing is in progress. And again, it will index the 19 documents, okay, as expected. As you can see, 10 seconds, index 19 documents, all good, okay, same result. So we have the indexers, right? So I want to quickly show you data source. Again, we have our Cosmos DB that we configured, and then skill sets. Again, you have your skill set here created that we created during the creation of the index and importing the data. As you can see, again, you have the definition of your skill set. in the second session, don't worry, we will explore this in detail. I will explain you how you can start configuring it, the skill set, even using custom skill sets, custom skills. But for now, for the matter of time that we have limited time, I'm just sharing with you these details, okay? Again, a tab where you have the configurations in terms of the connected cognitive service and the knowledge storage that we configured as well, okay? One important detail here is when you are configuring your skill sets and your skills, you have on the right side, you have templates available, okay? So depending on the type of skill that you want to use, as you can see here, in the text category, you have key phrase extraction skill, language detection, merge skill. You have many different skills, split skill, and then you have other categories including vision, so you can do OCR skill or even image analysis skill, okay? And then these templates, what means is you have the template here below, based on the type that you select, you have here the JSON below, and then you can configure and customize it to your based on your needs, okay? So given that we have everything configured, we are happy to go. And that means now we should be able to proceed to create our demo app, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to my index created, and I have here an option that says create demo app, okay? So I just select the creation of the demo app. I'm going to enable course to just avoid any issue. And then you have a wizard where you configure your demo app, okay? On the left, you just select the thumbnail. We don't have image in our search index, so I'm going to just select a random field, in this case, ID. In the title, I'm going to select the review's title, and in the description, I'm going to select the review's text, okay? So then I can proceed to the next step. And in here, you can actually configure your sidebar. This is in relation to your faceted search, okay? So in this case, I have my reviews rating field being used. And instead of number range, I want to use a checkbox. I will show you what is the output then that you get. And then you can go to the suggestions and configure the suggestions. For this, I will leave as default. I'm going to create my demo app. I just download it. I just override it. And I'm going to open it and start to query, okay? So if you hit enter, straight, it brings you all the results that is available on your Azure Search, okay? In this, in the left side, as you can see, you have the filter for your faceted search. So as you can see, straight, it puts me here as a checkbox, the options I have available in terms of ratings. So you can quickly see, okay, let me see the ratings that are 5 stars, okay? And then you can see, okay, great hotel. I'm going to even zoom in, okay? So you can see here 5 stars. You can see great hotel with jacuzzi bath, a good hotel on the Lido, quiet location. I would come back, very nice hotel. So the idea is you can see how easy it is to pretty much build a quick app providing these search capabilities. And of course, you can also say, okay, let's have a look to the ratings, to the reviews that has 1 star, okay? And then you can have insights about what is not making people happy, okay? Then also you have the full text search that you can quickly come here and say, okay, I want to see something related to beach, okay? And you can see here that pretty much as here a partial match that says close to One-Way Beach in Venice, okay? Or I could say, let's imagine here, I think there is a great value or good value, maybe good value. So we want to see the reviews of good value. And again, as you can see, if I search here by good value, you find it here. So in short, a good pick, good value for money, okay? So again, to see you a simplified way for you to start to play around with your Azure Search and play around with your data by leveraging these search capabilities provided. Okay, before we close it, so we have the demo app, and now I want to show you the Power BI report. So we have the knowledge store created and it has our data. Actually, let me just show you here. So as you can see here, I have my storage account created. I have my container projections, and then I have all the projections here. And on the table as well, I should have the different tables created here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you the reports, how it looks like. So you just need to download the template that I mentioned to you and then fill in the parameters. Once you do that, it will take a bit of time to just connect to your Azure Search instance. But then once it connects, as you can see, you open your reports, it will load, and it straight loads your data. Okay, so you can see relevant data in relation with the content that is hosted on your Azure Search, including the key phrases, including the different contents in the documents, and including more information. Quickly, as you can see here, you can do a search in your reports and pretty much filter the different reviews and the different contents to get focused insights into provide capabilities for your business users to get focused insights and specific insights into your data. And also you have different tabs. I will show you as an example. We have here a key phrase graph. Okay, so quick, you can see here in yellow the big keywords or key phrase or tags that comes from the content that you are using in Azure Search. So you can see that it has breakfast, you can see it's an hotel, you can see that as a water buzz, you can see it's in Venice. So as you can see, you quickly can extract relevant insights from your data, and the most important thing is in a easy and simplified way. That's the most important thing, in my opinion. Ultimately, we don't want to be to have headaches and while building complex solutions, I would say. So, of course, there are other tabs in the template available. For the matter of this demo, it's not showing any data because we don't have entities and even document image in our data source, as I mentioned. So, given that, let's go back to my presentation. And I just want to be sure if we have any questions, Adriano, so far. Okay.
And yeah. Hello, everybody, and great presentation here by Hugo. And at this point, remember, enter your questions using the chat window. If you're not watching the live presentation, use the comment section below and enter your question for building seamless data and AI solutions with Azure Cognitive Search. So at this point, Hugo, I don't see a question, but I know you have something else.
I checked the chat. Yes, I checked the chat, and I don't see any questions as well.
I know you have something else you want to talk about. Please go ahead.
Yes, please. Thank you so much. So quickly, I have a list of resources to share with you where you can pretty much access these links. Just take a screenshot from this, and I could use QR codes. I actually forgot. I'm sorry about it. But pretty much the first link is the documentation of Azure Cognitive Search. It's always good to refer back to the documentation provided by Microsoft. The second link is an introduction. It's a module available, or a learning path in this case, available in Azure, in Microsoft Learn, that is related with Azure Cognitive Search. So you can follow up the steps, take this journey to learn more about Azure Search, and follow all the steps in the different modules and learn more about this. And the last one was actually a link that I left here more for developers, where you have the link to to the repository where you have some Azure sample applications using, in this case, .NET. So in case you want to play around without developing anything, but just play around with some applications using Azure Search, you can access this repository provided by Microsoft and use the out-of-the-box applications available there, okay? And quickly, I want to share something with you. So as I mentioned before, I'm a member of the Cloud Lunch and Learn group. And in November, we have a big event coming up. It's pretty much a challenge, okay? So if you think with me, see, we are doing these sessions, we are learning about topics, we are learning the theories and so on, but it's always good to put things in practice. And especially, right, when we can put in practice using real world projects and real world challenge, okay? So in this case, in November, we are bringing the second edition of the Ideathon. And this year, we have, in collaboration with the Baran Polytechnic, it's pretty much a polytechnic based in Baran. We have, in collaboration with them and their students, we have a big project in the context of air pollution and air quality, okay? And of course, quality of living of people in Baran. And we have a challenge for you. So that means you can participate in this challenge. You will have, the challenge will start on the 4th of November. You will have 2 weeks to work with your team to design the best solution as possible to solve this challenge. The participation is free. We have amazing prize for the winners. And the most important thing is you can participate individually and we'll match you with a team, or you can participate with your team. So you can bring your friends, you can bring your colleagues all together and make the move and show, share your expertise and share your knowledge. That's the most important thing. While creating value to the society. Okay, so this is a way for you to build something real, if you know what I mean, in the context of the community and working with other people that you don't usually work. Okay, we have some companies sponsoring this event, so the visibility it's quite big, so it will be also a good opportunity for you to connect with great members of the community and great professionals worldwide. Okay, so this is a worldwide event. One last detail and important is, during those 2 weeks while building your solution, you will work on your own time and schedule, okay? So you don't need to worry about if you are based in US or if you are based in South America, okay? Pretty much you have freedom and flexibility to agree with your team times and days to work together or individually and then consolidate the work that you do, okay? So given that, thank you so much, Adriano. I don't see any questions in the chat at the moment, to be honest.
Yeah, I also don't see it there. Can you stop sharing, please?
Yes.
All right, folks, some great information here being shared by Hugo on the idea share. So take advantage of it, register, engage, participate here. He's bringing the community together, engage from and looking for individuals from around the world to take place on the Ideathon coming up in November. And which day is that? Hugo, do you have a date already?
Yes, 4th of November, it will be the kickoff.
All right, folks. So check it out. You have just about a month or short of a month there.
Yeah.
So do not delay. Register now. And as Hugo said, it can be you as a team, you as an individual, but also you on a worldwide team.
Yeah, one important detail as well, I actually did not mention, okay? Some people, I know that some people sometimes think that, as an example, hackathons are only made for developers and are fully as you know, right, hackathon pretty much is mostly focused on the implementation of the solution, and not everyone knows how to code and implement a solution. This one, Ideathon, is a way that we try to do an inclusive way to enable everyone to participate. So that means these challenges focus only on the idea, on the design of the solution, okay? So no implementation is required. So that means anyone can participate, independently on the level of expertise that you have in your professionally, or independently in the area that you work with, okay? So don't worry, just bring your ideas, bring your energy, enjoy to work with the community. That's the most important thing, and let's learn together, because ultimately this experience, it's always a good chance to learn about the cloud and about technology.
Excellent. And here we have it with Hugo Barona. Some great information here on Azure Cognitive Search, and you went through the process of how to enrich, index your data there. And what we have coming up in 2 weeks is October 20. So mark your calendar, October 20, enhancing data with Azure Cognitive Search and artificial intelligence. Some very exciting information here. Stay tuned. We'll be back on this channel here. Remember to register at meetup.com. We'll be sharing the link as well. We'll add to the comment section here the link. And any final words here, Hugo?
I just want to appreciate everyone that attended to this session, and also the people that watch the session later on. I imagine that sometimes it's quite challenging to attend these sessions in the community. On my local time, it's midnight, so it's time to sleep. But yes, feel free to connect with me. If you want to connect with me, you can access my personal blog, where I have all my contacts there. So www.hugobarona.com. And yes, I hope you can join us on the 20th of October.
Very much, and see you out there.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
All right. All right, Hugo. We are out.